Back in 2018, the Movi Cinema Robot was one of the most ambitious and interesting smartphone gimbals you could buy for iPhone filmmaking. But only a few short years later, it was gone. This is the story of the rise and fall of the Movi Cinema Robot. In the late 2010s, smartphone filmmaking was really taking off. Cameras were getting better, apps were getting more powerful, and gimbals were a really hot topic. Seemed almost every month there was a new one being released. And most gimbals at the time made for smartphones were fine. Mainly plastic, mostly affordable, and really just built for convenience. But Freefly, the company behind the Movi Cinema Robot, wasn't most companies. They were one of the pioneers of motorized camera stabilization, bringing gimbals out of the DIY world, so to speak, and onto professional film sets. Their Movi systems were used in Hollywood, on commercials, and really on any production where unique camera movement mattered. I used the Movi on several of my independent film projects. So when Freefly turned their attention to smartphones, a lot of people took notice. And the thing is, they didn't approach it like just another smartphone gadget. There was a lot of thought behind the Movi Cinema Robot, and to me, they treated it like it was for creating cinema. Again, Freefly wasn't new to the gimbal world, so the Movi wasn't a scaled-down toy. It was a scaled-down philosophy from their higher-end filmmaking tools. It was a compact system, but very powerful. It could pan on its own, repeat moves, create shots that normally required more gear, higher end gear, or even sometimes a second person. And that's why, yeah, they called it a cinema robot. But for me, the thing was you could shoot incredibly smooth footage. So this shot here was the very first time I'd ever shot with this gimbal. And I have to say, I was really impressed right out of the box. I'm using the default majestic mode. And this is probably the smoothest gimbal I've ever used without any practice whatsoever. And to this day, I still think it's the best smartphone gimbal I ever used. But their ambition came with a trade-off. The Movi existed in a strange middle ground. For casual users, it was overkill. And it was on the pricey side, about $300. For professionals, yeah, well, it was still a smartphone. And this is, of course, back before we had ProRes or Apple Log, and in most professional circles at that time, shooting mobile video was largely frowned upon. And then the gimbal market started shifting. By the early 2020s, a new category started to emerge, what I like to call hybrid gimbals. Devices that could hold smartphones and small mirrorless or cinema cameras, and for around the same price too, sometimes even less. This is designed for smartphones and small compact cameras and some mirrorless cameras. So now for roughly $250 to $300, you had a choice. A dedicated smartphone gimbal like the Movi, or one that could grow with you into other traditional cameras. At the same time, competitors were getting better, cheaper gimbals improved, and importantly, built-in phone stabilization kept getting better as well. So a lot of people didn't even think they needed a gimbal anymore, and many still feel that way today. I get where they're coming from, but I kind of disagree. It really depends on what you're shooting though. And then there was the app. One nice thing I will say about this app is it is very responsive and it connects every time. As soon as you turn on the gimbal, it syncs with the app almost immediately. And then you're ready to shoot. To unlock the Movi's full shooting potential, you really had to use the app. And while I really liked the simple design and some of the app features, it lacked most manual control that pros need. In Ninja mode, you can set the white balance, but you can't set the ISO or the shutter speed or anything. And it also only shot lower bitrate video, which I never really understood. Mobile filmmakers at the time were already building workflows around other apps like Filmic Pro. To get the best quality video, you really need to use Filmic Pro. The video quality out of the Movi app is not great. They had more control, more flexibility, could shoot higher bitrate and log, and just overall offered better image quality. But even with these issues, in my mind, the Movi was still riding high, and I expected to see a version 2, an update to the app, a new release at some point. But that didn't happen, and one day, it just went away. No dramatic announcement, no big final release or update. The Movi Cinema Robot was just discontinued. It really took me by surprise, and I actually did a blog post about it at the time and found a press release on their website. Movi has been rocking and rolling in the mobile filmmaking world since we started shipping in late March 2017. So many awesome clips and films were created with it, and people love having the Movi as part or all of their filmmaking memory capturing kits. Memory capturing kits, okay. That's kind of a weird line, and when I read that, I thought, oh, they didn't really get the market they were in. To provide a great experience for customers for 3+ years for a mobile phone accessory is a great run, but all good things must come to an end eventually. We are sad to say, as of early January 2021, the Movi Cinema Robot is discontinued permanently. And so yeah, with that weird message, it was really the last we ever heard about it. I don't know exactly why the Movi Cinema Robot was shuttered, but the pressure points I think are pretty clear. It was a premium product in a smartphone gimbal market moving towards cheaper and social media focused tools versus filmmaking. It largely relied on its own app, even though eventually there was Filmic Pro integration, but it was never that great. And I heard the Movi guys were somewhat hard to work with on it actually, and they evidently didn't seem to care that much about advancing the app. For example, I know they kept promising object tracking that never came to be. But maybe most importantly, the line between smartphones and traditional cameras was starting to blur. And when one device like a hybrid gimbal could do both, a smartphone-only tool at that price point really became harder to justify. So they had a niche audience, were in a rapidly changing smartphone ecosystem, and I don't know for sure, but my guess would be the Movi had a pretty high production cost. Again, it was a premium product, but in a market racing towards consumer-grade customers. But here's the interesting part for me. In my opinion, nothing has replaced it. Sure, today's gimbals in a lot of ways are better. They're smarter, have AI tracking, easy to use. But the Movi had a different philosophy. And of course, what made it really different was its form factor, which I really liked. And it just worked right out of the box too. As weird as it may sound, it felt like it treated your phone as a cinema camera, not just a content capture device. Although in that weird press release, they did call it a memory capturing kit, but the Movi definitely didn't fail because it was cheap or poorly made. In my opinion, I think it came from a company that really thought like filmmakers and in a market that was starting to think like average consumers. And in the end, that's where the money is, no question about it. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't for everyone, but it was trying to push smartphone filmmaking forward, and in a way most companies weren't at the time. And maybe that's why it didn't last. But it's also why I think people still remember it. And I have to say, I loved it. I would actually still use it today, to be honest, but it doesn't work well with larger phones now. But it does have replaceable batteries, which is great. So technically, if you have the right size phone, you could use this thing forever. So was the Movi Cinema Robot ahead of its time? Or maybe it was just too expensive? Why do you think it went away? Drop a comment and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.